Hello and welcome to an advanced PvP guide. Today we take a look at team setups for the Forest of Niflhel. We're going to be talking a lot about roles in this episode, and if you're unsure what that means, check the link in the description below and it will take you to a previous video explaining it. So, Niflhel is a map packed with choke points and areas where it's possible to use line of sight to avoid damage. The secondary objectives are two bosses spawning on the opposite sides of the map, which when killed award the team that got the last hit points and a buff. For each of these team setups we're going to be showing it from the red team's perspective, and if you're working from the blue team simply mirror image it across. First up, I'll run you through a fairly standard team setup. Down on the near side node at the mine we'll have a defensive bunker build, for example a healing bomb engineer or a bunker guardian. The central point requires a bunker, but one that can also support their teammates in team fights. Shout guardians or support Ellies can be great here. Far point attacking needs someone who can assist in stealing the boss, so a thief, perhaps with a venom build with a mug trait, can be great. Lastly, roaming you need someone with high damage to steal the bosses and high mobility to get there fast enough. However, they also need to be of use in a team fight. Warriors and thieves are great here with a number of viable builds. The final member of the team can be put as either an additional roamer supporting the centre and back points and assisting in killing Svanir. A condition build here can be good. So that's a very basic team setup. It's pretty safe, but it still applies enough pressure to steal the boss and put pressure on their far point. Next up we're going to look at a slightly more offensive variation of the setup that still holds its own. For this we replace the mine defender with a mesmer bringing a portal with them. This allows them to venture off the node to more freely assist in team fights at the middle node. To help with this, an additional roamer will be sticking close to the mesmer while they're off the point so they can both jump back through the portal to quickly neutralise anyone stealing the mine. The other roles stay the same. This tactic requires good team communication but puts you in a much stronger position in team fights and around the central node because you're moving that player off the near side and pushing them out into the battlefield. This isn't a flat out offensive build, but moving that mesmer out into the team fights for mid gives you a good numbers advantage, which can be a big help. However, it does leave the risk of losing the mine if your mesmer is held up in a team fight and unable to portal back, or if they mess up the portal timings. You're also more susceptible to having your boss stolen for the same reason. Now, a more defensive variation of the basic setup is to remove the far point attacker and pull them back to the central node, giving you two people defending it. There are a number of good combinations for this, but currently I find a trap ranger and a shout guardian with healing symbols works very nicely. This gives great node control and allows for the ranger to apply pressure to anyone on the back wall as well. One roamer is moved back to support the near point and the second roamer moves between the two. Having a mesmer here can be very useful as they'll be able to use portals to move players between the two nodes as needed. This build sacrifices their node in exchange for a harder defense. However, once the enemy are onto this they will no doubt push out, leaving their node undefended, meaning if you plan to play a defensive strategy similar to this, it's a good idea to have an open mind and change your strategy if needed between this and the offensive one so you can quickly steal that point when needed. Next up is a bunker build that's quite popular in the current meta. To do this you take one portal mesmer, two LE bunkers, a guardian bunker and a good DPS profession. The mesmer guards the near point and uses their portal to get support from the mid when needed. The mid is guarded by an LE bunker and the DPS. Often this can be a ranger or a thief depending on your team setup. The far node is held by an LE bunker and a guardian bunker. This is very gimmicky, but it's pretty damn strong in the current meta, so I felt it should be included. The bunkers won't be getting kills, but they'll be using knockbacks and such to get control of the node initially, and then be damn near impossible to get them off of it. The last team setup I want to talk about is all about skirmishing and ganking. It works by intercepting players between nodes and outnumbering them, as well as bringing critical mass to any nodes which the enemy reaches. It's also very effective at stealing the bosses. It works by having two very strong bunkers on the back and middle nodes. They must be built around surviving alone, and guardians are great at this. Secondly, you have three roamers. The first is a mesmer, perhaps running a direct damage build including portals. Next you have someone to add more damage to the mix. I like a thief here as they can provide AoE stealth to the group as well, giving more options for surprise ganks. The last roamer brings some solid CC and support to lock players in place while keeping the others alive and well buffed. These three work together roaming around the map, ganking players between nodes. They can use portals to give them quick returns to the central node or wherever needed. Although this setup doesn't have a far point attacker specifically, the three roamers will often be ganking the area and are able to neutralise it often. When someone does get past their lines they can fall back and that gives them 4 players on the node, which often gives them a number advantage when defending as well. If you have any good tactics and team setups, why not let us know in the comments, and there are many viable options, these are just a few of them. For the next few weeks we'll be covering different tournament map setups. See you all soon.